Hello everyone, in this video we are going to talk about parallel lines and proportional parts. The first part of the lesson is about proportional parts within triangles. Here we have a statement. It says when you have a segment such as XY parallel to RS, then this segment divides the other two sides proportionally. So segment XY divides RT proportionally and TS proportionally. In that case, you can write various proportions such as Rx over Ys equals xt over ty. This is one of the proportions that you can write. And you can also write Rx over xt equals, I said Rx over xt, it is equal to Ys over Ty. We have one more thing to talk about. When we have a mid-segment, let's say XY is the mid-segment of the big triangle. In that case, the similarity ratio is going to be 1 to 2. So if XY is 1, RS is going to be 2. If XY is 5, RS is going to be 10. That's going to be the similarity ratio of the triangles. Also, xt over tr is going to be 1 to 2 again. So let's see the examples that we have. In triangle ABC, segment EF, let's see where the segment is. Right here is parallel to CB. These two segments are parallel. Find the length of X. Remember, when these two segments are parallel, point E and F cuts the sides proportionally. So 18 over 6 is going to be proportional to xy x plus 22 over x plus 2. So if we solve this, we get 18 times x plus 2 equals 6 times x plus 22. 18 and 6 can be simplified by dividing each by 6. So 18 becomes 3, and then we can distribute this 3. 3x plus 6 equals, this 6 becomes 1, 1x plus 22. So x plus 22. Now we can subtract 6 on each side. I'm going to continue from here. On the left hand side of the equation we have 3x. On the right hand side we have x plus 16. Subtract 1x on each side. 2x equals 16. If we divide each side by 2, we get x equals 8. The question was find x. We did so. That means we can move on to the next example. So in this one, it says in triangle GHJ, HK is 5. Let's put 5 on it. HK is 5. Right here. Remember, it is proportional. It's corresponding to that side. KJ is 10. KJ is right here. And it corresponds to that side. And JL is 1/2 the length of LG. Let's see. JL, if this side is A, LG is 2A. Right here is 2A. Is HJ parallel to KL? That is the question. To answer this, I want to go over this part right here. So if Rx over xt equals Sy over Yt, that means this segment over this one is equal to Ys over Ty, then we say xy is parallel to Rs. So if we go back to our question, for us to say that these two segments are parallel, 10 over 5 must be equal to 2a over a. So let's see if that is the case that we have. 10 over 5, we are going to see if it is equal to 2a over a. So if we do cross multiply, we have 10a equals 10a. This is a true statement, so that means yes, the ratios were each equal to each other, that means yes, segment HJ is parallel to segment KL. Let me go over what I did. I wrote the given segments on the figure, and then I set up a proportion to see if it's a true statement. The proportion was 10 over 5 equals 2a minus a. When we do cross multiply, we get 10a equals 10a. So it was a true statement, which means that the triangles are proportional, then the segments are parallel to each other. We have two more examples here. They're similar to the previous ones. We have one small triangle inside of a big one. That means the triangles are similar anyway. So if these two triangles are similar, we can write a proportion. So 24 over x equals 30 over 10. I know that 30 over 10 is the same as 3 over 1. So if you do cross multiply, 3 times x is 3x equals 24 times 1, or 24. Divide each side by 3, and then we get x equals 8. Remember, the first step of solving these questions is determining whether the triangles are similar or not. These two triangles are similar. I know that because we have one small triangle, this one here, inside of a big one. So if they're similar, that means we can write a proportion like this. 24 over x was equal to 30 over 10. By doing cross multiplication, I solved it for x. The second example is almost the same. First, I'm gonna figure out the length of this segment. So the whole thing is 33. From this point to that point is given 33. And this small piece is 11, so if we subtract them, we get 22 for this yellow segment. Now I'm going to do the same thing to set up the proportion. X over x plus 12 equals 11 over 22. So 11 and 22 can be simplified by dividing each number by 11. It becomes 1 over 2. Now if you do cross multiply, we get 2 times x equals x plus 12. Subtract x from each side, we get x equals 12 for this question. So to sum up, first I figured out the length of this side by subtracting these two, and then I wrote the proportion, the one that you see here, x over x plus 12 equals 11 over 22. You could also do x over 11 equals x plus 12 over 22. That would be correct. If you do cross multiply, you can solve it for x. Your answer is going to be the same if you use the other method as well. Okay, this part of the lesson is slightly more difficult than the previous one. What we have is proportional parts with parallel lines. So even though it looks a little bit more complicated than the previous examples, it's actually not. So let's get to it and then see what we have here. So when we have three parallel lines, these two parts are going to be proportional to these two. So there's not only one way to write down a proportion for these kind of figures. The one that is given is a over b equals c over d. So a over b, choose one segment or line, and then write down the parts of that segment together. A and b belongs to line T, so write them together, and then it's equal to, choose the other line. These are the transversals. T and S are the transversals, so choose the second line, and then write down the parts of that line together, C and D. But please realize that AC must correspond to each other and BD must correspond to each other. And there is also another way to write this. Instead of A over B, as you see, these are corresponding to each other. So you can also write it as A over C equals, and then these two correspond to each other, B over D. Both of these are going to give you the right answer, because here's the proof of that. Let's solve this one right here. Multiply A and D, right? So multiply these two, we get A times D. It equals, multiply these two, we get B times C. This is the equation that we need to solve if we use the first proportion. Let's see the second one. Multiply these two, we get A times D. And then multiply these two, we get B times C. So the equation is the same anyway. So just make sure that you find the corresponding parts. Either write them as a fraction or put them next to each other like this. So the second figure, this figure right here, what it says is, it's the same as this actually, but let's get to the given statement. It says if U over V, U and V belongs to the same transversal. Line N, in this case, is a transversal because it cuts the parallel lines. And line M is another transversal. So it's exactly what we did right here. Choose the parts of the transversal. U over V, if that is equal to 1, or this means if U and V are the same, because you get 1 if you divide the same number by itself. So what it says is, if you divide these two numbers and then get 1, W over X must be equal to 1 as well. That's all it says, and it has nothing different than what it says here. Now let's read the example. Refer to lines 1, 2, and 3 above. If A is equal to 3, B is equal to 8, and C is equal to 5, find D. So before that, I want to draw those lines here, because I kind of draw a lot of things on the lines. It's going to be difficult to explain that. So we know that line 1, 2, and 3 are parallel. It says A is equal to 3. Wherever I see A, I'm going to put 3. Right here is 3. B is 8. B was right here. C is 5. And D is missing. So I'm going to do the same. These go together. These go together. So 3 over 8 equals 5 over D. Cross multiplication. 3 times D is 3D equals 8 times 5 is 40. And then we divide each side by 3. So D equals 40 over 3 is 13.3 repeating. That's all for this question. This example is about the figure from the previous slide. Remember, it was about having U over V equal to 1. So U is, this part here is given as one line, and it is the same as this part right here. So these two segments are equal to each other. If you divide them, you get 1. So 1 equals 12 over 2x minus 6. So here's what it means. If you will get 1 when you divide 12 by 2x minus 6, they must be equal to each other. So you either do cross multiply and then solve it separately, or just set them up equal to each other. 2x minus 6 equals 12. They must be equal, because this is the only way for you to get 1 when you divide them together. So we add 6 on each side. 2x equals 18. If we divide each side by 2, we get x equals 9. And if x equals 9, this part right here, the pink segments, 2 times 9 minus 6 equals 18. 2 times 9 is 18. Subtract 6, you get 12. Remember, it must be the same anyway. So this one here is 12. Just like that, this part here is going to be 12 too. Because all of these are the same. This part is the same as that segment, and it is the same as this segment. Just like that, the parts of the right side must be the same. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any question, please comment below, and I will see you in another video.